Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional 9-dan Go player. This video is going to be about the third game of the semifinal of the Ing Cup between Ichiriki Ryo of Japan and Ke Jie of China. So this is a best of three, and this is the third game, so it's going to be the decisive game to decide who moves on to the final of the Ing Cup. Ichiriki has the white stones. We're going to be talking about two Josekis on the bottom side of the board, and then it's going to be a middle game. Okay, just to talk about the pincer here. A more popular move nowadays is some defense of the corner, so the komi or a knight's move, which would make miai of the lower left corner, maybe black e3, and a pincer on the right side. So this could be played. Otherwise, black could play an approach move here. This would allow white to press. And personally, I don't like to be forced into a low position like this, but if you like territory, this is a way that black can play. A distant pincer would probably allow white to press here and something like this. So this can be played also. When black plays the one-space pincer, that's close enough that black's probably going to push through and cut if white presses like this. In order to play this variation, you have to research it to a certain degree. I actually researched this variation, where black can actually play 6 as a push on the 5th line also. This one is a bit complicated too. We'll just look at this variation today. I researched this with this stone, a big shimari, and white's corner in the lower left corner. This stone was a start point. It is a different board position, but I'd say white's going to slide here. And when black plays here, it's probably a bad idea for white to bump against it, black at R3. And if white tries to kill the black corner, it's usually going to turn out badly for white. So the elegant move for white is to play here, threatening R2. And then white can jump out at 11. After which black will press at 12. And the fight will continue. So first of all, white's going to have to escape with the 2 stones on the bottom side. At some point, white might be able to play a ko with a move at T2. That would make a ko. Sometimes the ko could potentially kill black's group in the corner. So black might want to find a good time to play at S4, which would live in the corner, and set up an attack on the right side. I wouldn't be surprised if the players have researched this probably 20 more moves into the main variations. So white jumped out. So this is relatively simple. White played what I would call a classical Joseki. It's a Joseki that's been around several decades, maybe close to 100 years. After black moves out into the center, white takes the corner. So this makes a living shape for white. When I researched this, I recall that the knight's move here was black's shape. So this is a much more flexible shape in the center. It doesn't put quite as much pressure on the white group in the corner. So the idea is that if white plays away, black can kick here and force white to live, after which black can take the right side. So this was feasible for black. I prefer this variation for black. The game move, it's bad shape. However, the fact that the lower left corner, when I researched this, it was a start point. So white has stone at D4 instead of the 3-4 point that white has in this game. It does make a difference because the move at F3, the shimari or black kakari at E3, for instance, it's a bigger move than it would be if the white stone was at D4. The game move allowed black to play that kakari because it was relatively forceful towards the white group in the lower right. So it's pulling a liberty, slightly more forceful. White answered it, so black got to play the kakari. And now black plays the Taisha Joseki. If black had continued with the wedge here, very quickly it can go into a variant that is very difficult to explain. So I'm not going to do that. And they didn't play that way anyway. So this is a relatively simple version of the Joseki. It's been around for hundreds of years, and it's come back recently. It's been reassessed to say that it's playable for black. one thing you have to know about this Joseki is that it depends on a ladder. So if the ladder favors white, white will be able to do this. So if this ladder favors white, this is good for white, but of course, black 8 is a ladder. So it's a collapse for white when the ladder favors black. So it's that simple. I would not advise trying to find a good move for white after this. It's going to be a difficult fight for white. So it's correct for white to play the bamboo joint when the ladder favors black. And then white played here. So the Joseki move was to add a stone, an extension on the left side. So that would be a simple move, the Joseki. With the game move, white is taking away black's base. So white is putting the focus on this attack here, where black has a bad shape and white can attack the black group. So white P3 was taking away black's ice base, black's base. And black attacked white on the left side. So from here on, both sides are trying to attack each other first, and it gets a bit messy. I'm going to start by showing you something that I understand. So maybe I would be playing this variation in a game if I was white. Something like this. So white 1 is reinforcing the white group, still leaving room for white to peep at 3. So that's a satisfying combination there. And white has reinforced the group on the left and the group on the bottom side. White does have a potential ko in the corner. So if white has an advantage in ko threats, white can play a hane here and a double hane. So naturally, white needs an advantage in ko threats. This would take away black's base, though. So combined with surrounding the black group, potentially white could actually capture this black group. So white does have that threat there left behind. And so I would understand this variation. The actual game was much more complicated. So white started with an attack here. And black attacked too. So black is splitting the two white groups. And when white defended the bottom side, black played here. So here we have a position where there's a white group on the left that is half dead, and a black group on the right, which is also half dead. So both groups can potentially die, and that will not necessarily be decisive. So I could just say I don't know, but since I'm trying to explain this game, I'm going to make some diagrams. So first of all, if black adds a stone somewhere around here, this white group will be totally surrounded and it will not have room to live or even make a ko. There's nothing happening here. So this would kill the white group. White's one move away from being surrounded and killed. At this point, white still has some potential to get out. So if white plays here and here, the fact that there's a cutting point on the right makes it difficult for black to play strongly. I'd say black is just going to make a solid position on outside. At this point, white can either make two eyes or connect out to the center. So that group is not in immediate danger. Black would continue on the right side. So now white should be a bit uneasy about the group on the bottom side. So this would make it alive. And then black would play here. Relatively peaceful. Everything's alive. But if I were white, I would feel a bit dissatisfied because everything that white has done in this diagram has been passive. White has been answering black's threats in a passive manner. And black is starting to dominate the right side of the board. And so white is maybe a bit disappointed with this variation. It's still a close game, of course. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, bearing in mind the fact that white can escape towards the center, or if black plays first, black can surround white and capture the white group on the left. I have the feeling that it's more important than the black group on the right. So next, I'm going to try this move. The double hane here is challenging black to a ko. So white's going to try to deal with this weak group by throwing it away in a ko, in which case white will be able to get two moves elsewhere. Now if black denies the ko, if black backs off from the ko here, this exchange is good for white when white escapes out into the center. So in this case, white can play this way. The same variation, basically, only that exchange from 1 to 4 is a big gain for white. It's taking away the base from the black group, and it's expanding white's potential eye space. It's a territorial profit. So however you look at it, this exchange from 1 to 4 is good for white. And I think it makes this variation a lot more attractive for white. So maybe black's going to play the ko. So this could entail losing that group. If black wins the ko, there's not much potential for white to save those 4 stones. So the remaining 4 stones are dead also, but white's going to get the black group on a large scale. So evaluating this is not easy. My computer tells me that white has a small lead, maybe something like 1.5 points. This variation is logical. White can challenge black to a ko when white still has potential to escape out into the center. Instead of playing that ko in the lower left corner, white attacked the black group first. The idea is that white's going to try to capture the black group on the right, and maybe white's going to sacrifice the group on the left. Now, black has a difficult choice. So black can try to save the group on the right, or black can switch to the left side. So let's look at some variations here. First of all, if black plays here, this would connect the stones and escape out into the center. In this case, white would cut. If I were playing with white, I would be happy with this variation. White has a strong position in the center, capturing 2 stones in a ladder. And both the white group in the lower left and the status of the black group in the center, they're both undecided. So if black's not going to do that, then maybe black's going to play in a way that strengthens the group in the center and tries to capture white on the left side. So for instance, I think this is the move that Kato liked best. And white will capture the black group on the right. And black will try to capture the white group on the left. So there's still some aji there, mainly this attachment at 8. But black's probably going to be able to kill that white group. So in this variation, the white group in the corner is dead, and the fight will continue on the outside. Now let's look at the move that Ke Jie played. So black played here. And I would have never thought to play this move, I don't think. It looks a bit slow. It turns out it's a very annoying move. So first of all, let's look at the variation where white answers directly. Black's going to go for this variation, which the computer liked anyway. And the difference is that with that exchange of h3 for h2, black 4 becomes a forcing move. So it's very annoying for white. So if white plays away, then black can play here. And this is, white is getting into trouble here. So if white plays here, black's going to play here. And yeah, white doesn't really want to continue with this variation. Something like this, black would be escaping out. And white would not be alive yet. And we still haven't decided the problem that white has on the left side either. So it's pretty bad for white. So maybe white's going to answer. If white answers here, it's still annoying because black can cut here and get this move with sente. That means that black's still going to have the opportunity to save the black group on the right. And we're still worried about that white group on the left. So white's not really making the progress that he hoped to make. So that's how this move, the bamboo joint here, is extremely annoying. And white answered it on the outside. Up to this point, it seems that they were both playing fairly well. And it was about even. With the big komi, I'd say that white started with an advantage. So maybe it's a bit better for white most of the time here. But as this variation continued, black taking some territory on the bottom side, this point of the game, it was starting to look good for black actually. So black extends here, and it's a race to capture between the white stones on the bottom side and the black 2 stones that have just extended here. H2 is an important point that both players are focusing on. So here black has four liberties for the time being. If white gets to connect at H2, that will give that group 6 liberties. For the time being, white has to find a way to cut black off. So if white plays here immediately, then black would be able to cut here and push through here. So that would be a collapse for white. So white connected here. So Katago didn't like this move. And the reason is a bit involved. So just to give the correct move, white could play here and black could play here. And it's supposed to be good for white, but there still is some Maji at O2, for instance, or pushing through and cutting with L4. So there's some bad Aji there. And that's why he tried to do better than that and connect here. In the game, it worked out very well for white because black answered, after this, black answered here. And so white has connected everything up. There still is a ko at N1 because black can play P1 with Sente, so there's a ko at N1. But it's a one-sided ko. It's not a ko that's really threatening any white stones. It's just a ko to save the black group. So it's a slightly painful ko for black. And white got to play this move, which saved white's group on the left. So white has saved the group on the left, and black's group on the right is still sort of half dead. Black just got a bit of territory on the bottom side. So after this, suddenly it looked like Ke Jie had fallen off a cliff when I looked at the graph. He lost a lot in this immediate fight. So just to go back a couple of moves, black should have connected underneath here. So this is a scary move to play because the moment white plays at H2, white has a lot of liberties. So you have to read the variation out very carefully. It could be because of the time controls in this tournament. Ke Jie was playing quickly. Both players were playing quickly in this third game. It could be he didn't spend enough time to read it out. So in the In Cup, in the semifinal, the players have a main time of 2.5 hours, but they do not have Byoyomi after that. So if you use up your entire 2.5 hours of the main time section, you have to pay 2 points in komi, 2-point penalty to get 25 more minutes. And so, for instance, in the second game of this 3-game match, it could have been an issue when Ichiriki was probably pretty close to finishing his main time, and he would have had to pay a 2-point penalty, which would have made the game much closer than it was in actuality. So I get the feeling that in this game, both players were playing relatively quickly, and maybe they missed this variation. So what happens here is black can extend his liberties with this exchange, and it's a race to capture. So the race to capture is not simple because white has various ways to go about it. First of all, let's take a look at white trying to kill the whole black group. So that would be white playing here and pushing from this side. So I've marked black's liberties. Black has 5 liberties. White has only 4. So that was the simple variation, which is a complete collapse for white. And white's going to lose by one move difference. So a slightly more hard to understand variation would be white playing here and trying for a ko. So for the time being, white has an I there at J1 and black has no I. So if black just leaves that position with K2 open, then white's going to win with an I against no I. So it's black's responsibility to fill that liberty at K2 and start a ko. So the way it's going to turn out is eventually black's going to connect here and play an Atari here. This is a ko, but it's not a direct ko. So it's a one-step approach move ko. White has to play at Q5. It's also significant that white's move at Q5 is like it's a dame point. So it's not as if white's gaining anything while filling these liberties. It's not a direct ko. So at some point, black gets an opportunity to finish off white's group on the left. And this is probably a good variation for black. White's group on the outside, it had a shortage of liberties also. So that's a problem for white. So not a success for white. So white's next idea would be to capture the tail. And that's probably white's best try. So that would be, the other variation would be white playing here. So white just filling the liberties. So let's try this one. So if we fill it up to this point, we can see that white is going to capture the tail. So if black plays here, white can play here. If black plays here, black cannot connect all of the stones. So black's going to lose that chunk of stones on the right. It did take a long time for white to accomplish that. So actually at this point, black can play away and capture this white group on the left side. So in this case, black would be capturing the 5 stones on the bottom side, and it would be taking white a long time to capture black's group on the right, and probably a satisfactory variation for black. So this is why this was a winning variation for black, basically. So that's the explanation of the semi. If black had played here, he would have had a good winning percentage. The moment black played here, it turned into a win for white. And my computer didn't like black capturing here either. So black should have played here and allowed white to capture the 4 stones, capturing white on the left side. So that was a better variation. And so this is really bad for black. White has saved the group in the lower left. And to a certain degree, black is dead on the right. There is a ko there, though. So if black can play the tari here, black can get a ko on the bottom side. The problem with this is that it's not really an attack upon white. It's just saving the black group. So it's kind of a passive ko for black. So after this, it's just getting worse and worse for black. AIs generally don't like this 3-3 invasion where white already has a stone at c13. So it's going to degrade black for that also. But when you're losing a game, the human way to play it is to find a variation that's humanly challenging to your opponent. So that's what Ke Jie is trying to do here. I'm not really going to fault him for playing a move that is not the optimal move according to an AI, because humans have different ways to think about these things. White is decreasing black's area there, so he's invading lightly. I like the way white plays this variation. And he's keeping some possibility to attack black on the top side or the right side. So he's getting in the way of those 2 groups also. So black is pretty busy making living shapes on the top side and trying to connect on the right side. And he didn't really have time to attack strongly. Finally, black moves out. So these cutting stones were important, but white could start a ko in the corner. It means that black's not going to have time to do everything at the same time as saving this corner. So white used the ko threat to capture the cutting stones. Okay, now black has to worry about the group on the top. This move, wedging here, if black answers on this side, now this is going to be a problem for black because black's connection is not very good. So in this case, black's group in the center of the board would be getting into trouble. So black had to lose some territory here. The corner group, that black group in the top right corner is going to be alive. So white's threatening the top side now, but black had no time to answer that. So he's starting a ko. And white's threatening a ko in the top left corner. It's also a kind of an indirect attack on black's group on the top side. So this black group on the top side is in danger of dying now. And black's only hope is to make use of a squeeze on the top side. So it all has to do with the top left corner and this ko that they're fighting here. Black has to win the ko. So white eventually captured the top left corner, allowing black to live on the side. So that was the profit that white got out of that fight. Sort of turning into an endgame here, white does have a winning position. And so white's threatening black's connection in the center. It could be that black had kind of a hallucination here, but he's losing anyway, so it's hard to say. So this is not a connection. So black probably had to play something like this, and then he would have been connected in the center, but it would not be good enough. So white would capture these stones in the center, and it would be a win for white. When white played here, black resigned. So if black connects on this side, white will push through and cut. Or in this case, black cannot connect up in the center. So after what happened on the bottom side, Ke Jie did not really have any chances to win. So for the first time in several years, we have a Japanese player in the final of an international tournament. So that's, I guess that's something to celebrate. And the other finalist will be Ke of China. He actually was the finalist of the previous Ing tournament. So the Ing tournament is held once every 4 years. Last time, it took them about 3 years to finish it because of COVID. And so the games were delayed. And I think they finally finished the tournament in 2023. In that tournament, Ke, he lost to Shinjinso. So it's going to be Ke against Ichiriki. And it's going to be a best of 5. And I think they play in 2 batches of games in August and October. So hopefully I'll be able to follow those games also. Thank you for watching to the end, and I'll be back. Thank you.